check your mic, please? Hey, Jim. Jim.
Mr. Leach.
Would you check your mic?
Check, check.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I think so.
Randy, you're up.
Adam, can you hear me?
You got me? Here we go.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Well, welcome.
Good evening. Well, we know it's 7 o'clock. Good evening. This evening I have a special guest with us. I've known him for a long time, and I actually know his wife better than I know him. For the last 8 years, the first Monday of every month, there's a group of people that come in, and they did it when Mayor Noe was here, so it's been going on for many, many years. But at any rate, Diane has been coming faithfully. She's one of the ones that never misses. And she is married to Russell, which I think is his biggest claim to fame. So, all right. But I want to read Russell's biography for you. This is Mr. Russell Wooten, Reverend Russell Wooten, who's with us this evening. Reverend Russell Wooten has lived in Vienna since 1993, when he and his family moved here from Woodbridge, Virginia, a suburb of the Washington, D.C. area. He retired from what used to be known as the Bureau of Public Debt in 2011 after more than 30 years of service. Reverend Wooten has served as pastor of the Vienna Wesleyan Church for the past 8 years and currently serves there as an assistant pastor. He's been very active in our community, helping out with the Sanctuary House of Light, serving as a board member of the Women's Care Center, and speaking at numerous events. I asked him to come this evening because we always start our meeting with a prayer. And so I've asked him if he would give the invocation this evening. So if you'll come up front. We'll put you right in front. Right in front.
Should I look at this wall or this one?
You're going to look at the people behind us. Yes.
You're going to do it.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Fine, yes. We thank Lord for the opportunity to gather here today, and we ask we all to look to him in prayer as we in a time that we really need prayer. Lord, though I'm burdened by the divisions of the entire body, there's only one member that I have to give account for, and that's me. So Father, help keep my eyes in good perspective, to always see you as bigger than the problem, and unity as more important than me having my way. Give me strength and use my arms to pull people together and not push them apart. Continue to remind me of your words that a house divided cannot stand. Because in these troubling times, standing is exactly what we need to be doing. God is able and willing to keep us through any and everything if we continue to look to him. He tells us in the scripture in Ephesians 4:32, and be ye kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, have forgiven you. We thank him in the night, we praise him, and we ask these prayers in Jesus' name, and we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. God bless you. Would you please come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Officer Jones? It's like getting sworn in. I'll do the words if you need me to.
Just got to get the first 2 words out.
Everybody ready? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You know, as many times I do that in class.
I know, the kids. Reverend Wooten, I thank you for coming tonight. You know, our world has changed so much in the last 3 or 4 months. I've had lots of conversations with our police chief. The city of Vienna has always been blessed with outstanding officers and police chiefs. You can go back to Walter Pfeiffer and come up through Gary Deem, and with Mike, Officer or Chief Pfeiffer. You know, Mike's old school, but he's got a handle on the new trends that our world is faced with. And I know that in the discussions that we've had, one of the things that concerns him very much is the drug epidemic that's facing all of us. And the overdose numbers are just increasing dramatically. But you don't hear much about that now. With the COVID-19 pandemic and all of the concerns of social distancing and all the things that are going on, it kind of got shoved to the back burner. But it's the same, or if not worse, than it was 3 or 4 months ago. And so, with the things that are going across our country with the protests and all the things that are going on, we need prayer. And so I thank you for coming, and I think, Diane, thank you for coming as well. I know that you've said countless prayers for the city of Vienna over the last 8 to 10 years, however long time. And there are so many of the people that belong to the prayer group. They also go down to Mayor Joyce. I get Mondays. I don't know what day Tommy gets, but they also go down to see Tommy. And, you know, it's just, it's great work that you all do. And so we thank you for that. All right? Chief Pfeiffer, I didn't want to neglect you. Any words from you this evening?
You know, the trust for the community for us means everything. And we don't want to let you down. We all have a lot of things that we need to do better. And we will.
Okay, thank you. So this evening, first thing on our list here today is the public forum. And so Scott Morgan has signed up to speak to council. Scott, I think this is probably your first time to come. So I'll explain the rules to you. You get 5 minutes, and please speak to the podium or step to the podium so we can hear you.
Should I adjust the microphone or?
You can do it, but you have to bend it so you can speak into it.
Okay. Mayor Rapp, members of council, good evening. My name is Scott Morgan. I live at 1 Allen Drive, Vienna. Allen Drive is west of Grand Central Avenue off of 16th Street. It's between the railroad tracks and the Ohio River. It's right beside Ann's Drive. We're located just outside the city limits of Vienna. For the past 30 years before that, I lived at 1405 10th Street in Vienna. 6 years ago, I retired from the Parkersburg Police Department after serving 30 years there. During that time, I was the department's dare officer for 17 years, and I served in the uniform division as patrolman, corporal, sergeant, and lieutenant. Just before I retired, I received the Highway Safety Advocate Award from the Mid-Ohio Valley Regional Highway Safety Program and the West Virginia Governor's Highway Safety Program. I mention that only to show that I know a lot about traffic safety. In my younger years, I used to enjoy jogging and bicycling throughout the city of Vienna. Later on, I enjoyed walking around the city. After retiring and having 2 knee replacements and 2 back surgeries, I was unable to enjoy that anymore. I had noticed several golf carts being driven around the city of Vienna, and I knew that would be a safe, economical, and eco-friendly mode of transportation. Before purchasing a golf cart in 2018, I researched the Vienna Traffic Ordinance, Article 355, which appears to allow golf cart use on almost all city streets, including crossing Grand Central Avenue. Just to be certain, I even checked with a few Vienna police officers who confirmed golf carts were legal in Vienna. I then purchased a brand new golf cart, which has about every safety feature available. I have full coverage insurance on my golf cart. After driving my golf cart safely all over the city of Vienna for over a year, I was informed that golf carts were no longer legal in Vienna. I then asked the mayor, police chief, and city attorney to propose a new city ordinance to allow myself and all the other golf cart owners to be able to legally drive them in Vienna again. When I saw the proposed golf cart ordinance, myself, along with all the other golf cart owners in my neighborhood, were very upset to see that we were being excluded from access to the city of Vienna because of not being allowed to cross Grand Central Avenue at the 12th Street traffic light between Bond's Tailgaters and Cheddar's. After crossing Grand Central Avenue, it is possible to legally drive a golf cart, or it was legal, from TJ Maxx Shopping Plaza to 59th Street. I realize that there are more traffic lanes at 12th Street than on 28th Street, and the speed limit is 5 miles per hour higher. But think about what that traffic light does at 12th Street. When the traffic light turns green for traffic to cross 12th Street, the traffic lights for all the other traffic on Grand Central Avenue is red. I know from being a police officer for 30 years and driving a golf cart all over the city of Vienna, I feel a lot safer crossing Grand Central Avenue at the 12th Street traffic light than trying to cross Grand Central Avenue at 29th, 55th, or anywhere north of 28th Street without a traffic light. My neighbors and I strongly urge Vienna City Council to pass a golf cart ordinance that allows us to cross Grand Central Avenue at the 12th Street traffic light. I have papers with me showing where several other cities in West Virginia recently passed ordinances allowing golf cart use, and a copy of the City of Williamstown's golf cart ordinance, which was passed just last October 2019. I also have a petition signed by 20 people in my neighborhood requesting Vienna City Council to allow us to cross Grand Central Avenue at 12th Street. I appreciate your time and allowing me the privilege of speaking before you tonight. Kathy, should I give those to you now, or?
It's up to you. You can give
Okay.
it to me. That's fine, Scott.
How you doing, Scott?
Thank you, sir.
Next is Steve Flowers.
Mayor Rapp, City Council, thank you for the opportunity.
Could you speak into the
I've lived at
microphone,
Fort-
Mr. Flowers?
Can you hear me?
It's kind of one of those you kind of have to speak right into it.
Okay. I've lived at 1405 21st Street for 47 years. I know there's been an issue with water runoff and underground springs in that area for a long time. This constant flow of water under the street keeps washing the dirt until sections of concrete will begin to sink. Right now, a section of concrete across the street from my house is down 2 inches and going down further. The dirt supporting the concrete will erode until the city will finally come in, bust up the street, fill the void with dirt and concrete, and then refinish the street. This is like sticking your finger in a dike to stop a leak. The water's just going to find a different path. You have to address the source, and that's the water. For over a year now, there's been a constant flow of water coming up through the joints in the concrete in front of my house. This flow of water is over 15 foot when it emerges from the concrete wide. When it emerges the concrete, and it'll run down the surface of the street in front of 18 different houses before finally dumping into a storm sewer. I don't know the source of this water or the path it takes coming through the street, but I know it has green algae like slime in it, and I have to step in it every time me or my wife go to the mailbox. I've made city aware of this issue by phone, email, contacted the council member, but the city has not attempted to correct the issue. Evidently, the city does not believe this is a problem, so I will explain why I believe it is a very big problem. Number one, this water is not only washing out from under the street, it's also causing erosion to the adjoining properties, exposing structures and settling and possible foundation problems. In the winter, the water freezes and presents a slip hazard to pedestrians and traffic. And number three, since we don't know the source of this water, it may be contaminated or could easily become contaminated. There's a sewer access manhole 76 feet up the street from where the water comes out of the ground, directly in line with the water coming through the street. Has the city even tested this water for waterborne diseases? I have a petition with signatures representing 13 different households that are being exposed to this water, and we want it fixed now. In closing, I want you to imagine what you'd do if someone come by your house every day, every hour, and dumped a 5-gallon bucket of water in front of your mailbox in your driveway. So every time you went to the mailbox or drove across in your car, you carried that water into your garage. How you'd feel. Okay? I appreciate your patience and look forward to getting some progress done on this. Thank you.
Mr. Flowers, this is the first time that I've heard about the issue that you're having. I will look at it tomorrow.
Okay, I appreciate it.
I'm not familiar with 1405 21st Street. I know you're on top of the hill, but how far from the end of the street are you?
Oh, probably maybe 10 houses, 12 houses, something like that.
Okay.
Eighth of a mile, maybe.
I'll look at it tomorrow. I'm sorry,
Okay.
sir. This is the first I've heard of it, so we'll take a look tomorrow.
Okay, I appreciate
All
it.
right.
Thank you. Do you need a copy of this? Oh, and I petition, I'll give it to you after the,
That'd be great.
okay, thank you.
Brenda Powell.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Powell. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening. I have some pictures here that I'd like to pass out to all of you, if I could, please. You're just the attorney. You can share. You can share, right?
Thanks, Brenda.
Uh-huh. I'll put this one up here so that the people sitting here can see it also. This is located at 18th Avenue and 28th Street. Of course, we did have a lot of rain last week, but this is runoff water, and the issue is not just when it rains heavily, it is all the time. Anytime that they have a lot of rain, they have all of this flooding going through their yards, and they have attempted several times through the past 3 years to talk to the city about taking care of this flooding issue. I guess I'm following after this gentleman that just spoke with his issue, but this issue, they don't know where to go and what to do at this point. I don't know whether or not there's a possibility that, with it being runoff water from stormwater, that there needs to be a grate as far as a large, I think on the last part there they have a culvert, but it's not very big. But maybe something can be done as far as putting in some type of drainage there and the capabilities of it. I mean, like they have up in Greenmont Hills, they have that capabilities to have the water to run off. through, for the stormwater. I didn't know whether or not it's something that can be done. I'm hoping that it would be for them. The people in the neighborhood, it's a dead-end street. It's not, there's not a lot of people that live in that area. It's not like a big, housing development, but it is, they are dealing with this, with water in their yard and running through it, and they really need to have this issue taken care of. So I'm hoping that, that's, looking at this, that you can see that they really need help, and that you will take the time to look into it and find out what can be done for them to correct it, and that they can get the water out of their yards. Thank you so much.
The last thing that I'm going to do this evening before we start our regular meeting is to read a proclamation. June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, and I know from personal experience, I lost my father to Alzheimer's. It is absolutely one of the most devastating things that can ever happen to your family, because the people that you love no longer know who you are. And the people that they change and turn into when they cannot remember where they are or what they did 5 minutes before makes life very difficult for caregivers, and their personalities change, and it is just unbelievable what Alzheimer's does to perfectly healthy people. It's one of the saddest things that I've ever been associated with, and I would not wish that on anyone. And so as I read the proclamation, one of the things that they ask us to do is to wear purple in honor of the Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. Well, unfortunately for me, the only purple shirt I have is a long sleeve turtleneck. And so I will be glad to take my long sleeve turtleneck off. Roger, you look pretty sharp in your purple. So anyway, this measure would recognize the month of June 2020 as Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, would recognize June 20th, 2020 as the longest day in West Virginia, and would urge all residents to wear purple on this day to help spread global awareness of the Alzheimer's Association's vision of imagining a world without Alzheimer's disease and other dementia. Whereas the month of June 2020 has been declared Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month to help spread awareness of this debilitating disease and the need to increase efforts to combat its human and economic costs. And whereas the summer solstice, June 20th, 2020, has been declared the longest day, with teams around the world coming together to honor the strength, passion, and endurance of people facing Alzheimer's disease with a day of activity and advocacy. Whereas Alzheimer's disease, a progressive neurodegenerative brain disorder, tragically robs individuals of their memories and leads to mental and physical impairments. And whereas West Virginia has 39,000 residents living with Alzheimer's, and by 2025 will have a projected 44,000 residents living with the disease. And whereas West Virginia Medicaid spent $445 million caring for people with Alzheimer's, and whereas Alzheimer's disease is always fatal, and today it is the 6th leading cause of death. And whereas Alzheimer's is a family disease impacting West Virginia's spouses, partners, children, siblings, and other relatives who provide unpaid assistance to a loved one. And whereas West Virginia caregivers devote 120 million total hours of unpaid care to family members valued at over $1.5 billion in non-governmental financial support. And whereas individuals living with Alzheimer's disease and their caregivers need acknowledgement, support, and services to meet their needs over the lengthy progression of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Vienna recognizes the month of June 2020 as Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, recognizes June 20th, 2020 as the longest day in Vienna, West Virginia, and urges all residents to wear purple on this day to help spread global awareness of the Alzheimer's Association vision of imagining a world without Alzheimer's disease. And it's signed Randall C. Rapp, Mayor, City of Vienna. So I hope and pray that none of your family are ever affected by this, because it is a terrible, terrible disease. I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for June the 11th, 2020. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll that all members of council are present. Having a quorum, we will proceed. The minutes from the regular council meeting held on May the 28th, 2020 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any objections? Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no objections, then the minutes will stand approved as posted. Report of the treasurer, Councilman Leach.
Thank you, Mayor. I have reconciliation of funds for City of Vienna dated June 11th, 2020. I've reviewed the accounts. They appear in order, and the city is financially sound.
Thank you. We have no unfinished business this evening, so we'll move right into new business. I tell you what I would like to do, unless you all have an objection. I would like to move item number 2 up to item number 1. I have a feeling we're going to discuss the ordinance on first reading for a few minutes, but Ryan Barber is here with us this evening from the city of Parkersburg, and I know he's had a long day. If there are no objections, I would like to do that. Ryan, we'll turn it over to you then so we can get you out of here.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you for your time this evening. Appreciate Mayor Rapp moving that up for me. But yes, my name is Ryan Barber. I work for the City of Parkersburg, resident of Vienna. Over the past 4 years, I've approached Vienna City Council regarding the Home Consortium annual budget, and that's what I'm here to do again tonight. This year is a little bit different. You'll notice from the resolution it's quite lengthy. There's actually 4 separate components to that resolution. I can kind of go over those briefly and then address any questions you may have. The City of Parkersburg is required to administer CDBG and home funds on behalf of HUD for Wood County. The resolution tonight is simply asking the City of Vienna to continue to be a part of the Home Consortium, which comprises of the City of Vienna, City of Williamstown, City of Parkersburg, and Wood County. I also have in some of the notes here the 2020 annual action plan, the 2020 consolidated plan, and an analysis of impediments to fair housing. Back in the fall 2019 through the early part of 2020, City of Parkersburg worked with a consulting firm out of Pittsburgh. We conducted over a dozen public forums, stakeholder meetings, to identify any concerns, challenges, opportunities that they see in their community. So the City of Parkersburg, using CDBG and home dollars, is attempting to address some of those challenges and some of those issues. So with the home budget, which is available to be used anywhere in Wood County, and that's why I'm presenting this to you tonight, we were allotted just over $351,000 to be used anywhere in Wood County. Some of the programs that we identified are similar to programs that we've done in the past, and I can kind of go through those with you briefly. We've allocated or proposed allocations of $86,000 to a community housing development organization, a CHODO. That's actually Habitat for Humanity here locally. That's to construct 1 new single-family home. 2 homes are currently under construction, 1 in Williamstown and 1 in Parkersburg now. We propose to continue funding the down payment assistance program. That program is offered countywide to first-time home buyers looking to purchase their first home anywhere in Wood County, and that can provide a grant up to $10,000 to go to closing costs and down payments for a home. The big item on the budget is $305,000 for new construction for housing. So the City of Parkersburg is looking currently to partner with a housing developer to construct affordable, safe, and accessible housing. If anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those this evening.
Okay.
just kind of outlining the 5-year consolidated plan. The city is required to conduct that every 5 years by HUD. And basically some of the outcomes that we identified, or needs that we identified, of course, is housing. Being able to increase the stock of safe, affordable, and accessible housing throughout Wood County remains an opportunity for us. Also, being able to address the challenges facing the homeless population. Community development, which is things like parks, playgrounds, sidewalks, demolitions of slum and blighted properties, as well as economic development opportunities, trying to create or retain employment in the region.
Okay. All right. Ryan, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to have Russ Skogstad read the resolution.
A resolution of the City of Vienna authorizing participation in the Parkersburg Wood County Home Consortium for the period of July 1st, 2020 to June 30, 2021, and approving the fiscal year 2020 to 2024 5-year consolidated plan, the fiscal year 2020 annual action plan, and the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice, and authorizing the filing of the plan with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Whereas Title II of the National Affordable Housing Action of 1990 provides for the creation of the Home Investment Partnership Program, hereinafter referred to as HOME, and whereas the home regulations promulgated by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development under 24 CFR Part 92 authorize units of general local government to enter into housing consortium cooperation agreements, and whereas there is still a need throughout Wood County, West Virginia, to provide affordable housing for the low and moderate income residents, and whereas the City of Parkersburg Development Department has prepared a fiscal year 2020 to 2024 5-year consolidated plan, fiscal year 2020 annual action plan, and analysis of impediments to fair housing choice for fiscal years 2020 to 2024, which proposes how the entitlement grant funds will be expended to address the housing needs identified in the 5-year consolidated plan, along with the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. And whereas a draft of the 2020 to the 2024 5-year consolidated plan, fiscal year 2020 annual action plan, and analysis of impediments to fair housing choice was on public display from May 22nd, 2020 through June 23rd, 2020, and a series of public meetings and hearings were held on the said plans, and the comments of various agencies, groups, and citizens were taken into consideration in the preparation of the final documents. Whereas the Wood County Commission, the City of Parkersburg, the City of Vienna, and the City of Williamstown, West Virginia, have formed a consortium which has been designated as a participating jurisdiction under the HOME program, thereby entitling the consortium to an annual funding. And whereas the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has awarded the Parkersburg Wood County Home Consortium a home grant in the amount of $351,911 for fiscal year 2020. And whereas the City of Parkersburg recognizes the need to obtain funding for affordable housing and has identified the HOME program as a source of funds to meet this need. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Vienna that 1, the City of Vienna will continue to cooperate with the City of Parkersburg in a consortium for participation in the HOME program. 2, a copy of this resolution is to be submitted in the request to HUD to approve funding of the Parkersburg Wood County Home Consortium for the above fiscal year 2020 Home Investment Partnership Program.
I'll entertain a motion for the passage of the resolution authorizing the City of Vienna to participate in the Parkersburg Wood County Home Consortium for the period of July the 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the resolution authorizing the City of Vienna to participate in the Parkersburg Wood County Home Consortium for the period of July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Ryan, thank you very much. Appreciate your work on that. Okay, now we'll go back to the first item on our agenda, the ordinance on first reading regulating the use of motorized carts. Mr. Skogstad, would you like to give an overview of this?
How much detail do you want me to give?
Well, I'm going to ask Chief Pfeiffer to give a couple comments about the traffic
Okay.
issues. So,
All right. Recently, it's been brought to the attention of City Council, the mayor, and myself that some individuals would like to be able to drive golf carts throughout the city. Presently in West Virginia, it is illegal to drive a golf cart on the roads and highways and streets of any municipality in the state that has not passed a specific ordinance or provision that allows them to do so. What we have here is, thank you, is an ordinance, and I've done a couple of different drafts of this. One was actually pretty draconian, particularly in the restrictions that it put on folks that were wanting to use golf carts. It had lights and mirror restrictions and what have you. This one is a little more pared down. What has happened in the past is essentially you're not supposed to drive golf carts on the streets in Vienna, but generally there's been a no harm, no foul approach, meaning if you want to drive to the golf course and drive back and you're not causing any problems, then generally that's not been something that's been heavily enforced. But we now have issues where individuals are wanting to drive the golf carts on the streets, and particularly in Grand Central. So while we were here, or while I was looking at this, I was trying to find a way that continued to allow, or a proposal for council that continued to allow folks to take their golf carts to the golf course, ride them on most of the streets other than Grand Central. Required some safety equipment, particularly for children. So if you're, if you put your kids on your cart and they're above the age of 6, they have to wear a helmet. Put restrictions on who could drive them, meaning if you were under 18 or you had a graduated driver's license, you can't drive it. You have to have an actual full-on operator's license. Put some restrictions on, the time of day, location, but particularly the primary concern that both the chief and I have had in dealing with this issue is our concern that folks are going to want to drive the golf carts on Grand Central itself. The part of Grand Central above 28th Street is probably more amenable to that than the part down by below 28th, down where the mall is, the Miracle Mile, which is one of the most heavily traveled areas in the state. It has 7 lanes. So what we've done is put restrictions, or this proposal puts restrictions on where you can ride them as far as speed limits. You can't ride them on a street that's more than 25 miles an hour, or that has a speed limit of more than 25 miles an hour, has a double yellow line, and specifically can't ride a golf cart below 28th on Grand Central. I actually can't ride it on Grand Central except across it all, but any street, including, I guess, 46th, because it too has a double yellow line. You can't, you have to be able to ride it under conditions where it can be seen at 500 feet, which is actually per state code for all vehicles. Every vehicle that's operated on the road has to be able to be seen at a certain point so people have enough time to stop and what have you. You have to have a valid operator's license. You have to, you can't use it with more than the number of people that it can seat. You got to sit down in it, so you don't have kids riding on the back and swinging off the back of it where the golf bags go. If you can't put children on it that are under the age of 6, because most of those kids would have to be put in federally approved seats, and so on. So there are a list of restrictions here. There are restrictions on where you can cross. Now, as it stands now, you're technically not supposed to be driving these anyway. Now, Mr. Morgan referred to at one point that golf carts were legal. To some degree, they were. Under West Virginia statute, I think it was prior to 2014, West Virginia has very strict has strict restrictions on what can be driven on the road. So if it's a motor vehicle, you can't drive it on the road. Or I'm sorry, if it's a motor vehicle, you can drive it on the road. But then they define what motor vehicles are. So motorcycles are fine. ATVs and UTVs are not allowed except to go trail to trail. We were using the old UTV definition for golf carts, and we were saying they're UTVs because they met the description, so you could ride them from trail to trail. West Virginia legislature changed that. They said specifically golf carts are not UTVs, dummies. Stop doing that. And so that's kind of where we're at. So what this does hopefully it's a compromise of some sort. It allows people in the city to use golf carts or motorized vehicles, motorized carts in a way that's safe, keeps it to the side streets, the back streets, keeps them off Grand Central with the exception of crossing Grand Central at specific intersections or certain intersections. It explains how you're going to be able to cross and so forth. So you're still going to have a license. You're still going to have to be over the age of 18. You're going to have to operate it safely. And you can't operate it to just drive up and down Grand Central. I understand that some folks want to do that, but with 7 lanes of traffic at this point, and I'll let Chief Pfeiffer address it, it doesn't appear to be something that the city believes, or at least my proposal believes, that the risk or the benefit of being able to drive your golf cart to Walmart or to Home Depot outweighs the risk of not only to you, because you can make all the decisions you want that hurt yourself, but it poses a danger to other people. And I just looked at it from the perspective of, if I were a 16-year-old girl driving, how would I like to have hit somebody in a golf cart that if they were in a car, they probably would be fine. But if they were in a golf cart, they're probably not going to be fine. And I understand the bicycle, motorcycle argument, but those are things that the state have made specific provisions to allow. So anyway, that's essentially the overview of what the ordinance is now. So,
Chief Pfeiffer, traffic concerns?
Well, some of my concerns is not.
Oh, Mike? Chief, I'm sorry. Can you go to the microphone? Would you like this one instead, Mike?
No, this is fine. Some of my concerns is not just with the drivers of the golf carts, but it's the drivers of the vehicles. West Virginia 14 Grand Central Avenue is so heavily traveled. We live in an age, whether we like it or not, of distracted driving. I see it all the time. We do the very best we can to enforce it, but it happens. And that's my biggest issue is the motorists. Maybe not so much the golf cart drivers, but it's the motorists. And I think a collision between a vehicle of any kind and a golf cart is going to be catastrophic. I don't think it's going to end well. So that's my main concern. So I'll be happy to address anything else council has, but that's what I can think about. So, and also keep in mind the way it's written, the double yellow line, 12th Street is a double yellow line up to the cemetery, to Neil Cook Cemetery. So just FYI.
One of the questions that was proposed to me, Chief, was about the scooters, the handicap scooters that some of the seniors drive. I know the other day we had a really bad crash with one of those.
At McDonald's.
You know, that's a concern. They don't move very fast either.
No, they move really slow, and it takes, you know, I'm not really concerned about a single vehicle golf cart crash. It's going to be a collision with a vehicle. So, and as long as everybody's fine and nobody's hurt, then it's all well and good. It's till somebody's hurt, then when the fingers start getting pointed, and, you know, whose idea that was. So that's what I'm concerned with. So.
All right, we'll go around and we'll see if we have any more questions for
Okay,
you.
thank you.
In the ordinance that you've drafted, Mr. Skogstad, there is an optional thing in there that's in red.
Yes.
Would you explain that, please?
Well, in West Virginia, any motor vehicle that's driven on the highway, with certain exceptions, has to be insured. A vehicle that requires, with the exception of ATVs, UTVs, four-wheelers, and what have you, they have to have motor vehicle insurance. One of the concerns that I have with golf carts is, since they don't fall under the ATV and the UTV requirement, if you're going to drive it on the road, how are you going to insure it? Is it going to fall under your homeowner's policy? Are we going to require folks to have insurance? Is their insurance policy going to extend to cover the golf cart? So you have an umbrella policy with your insurance and it covers whatever you have. Are we going to require I put it in there as an option, because are you going to require people to have insurance? Or are you going to require them to carry proof of insurance? And that, again, that's another concern. Every other vehicle has to carry some type of insurance. Now, I've left it in there as optional, and left it on the onus on the homeowners, because I recognize that ATVs and UTVs have those exceptions. But again, those definitions are separate from, those are things that are set out specifically in state code, making a differentiation between a golf cart and a four-wheeler, or side-by-side and a four-wheeler.
Councilman Rogers, I know that you've done some research on the insurance question. Would you care to elaborate on what you learned?
Well, I talked to my insurance agent and asked about the insurance, and basically she told me that it would be up to the person, and some of it would probably be covered under personal property. However, some other things that I think we should have a motion to pass this in a second so we can have discussion as far as that is concerned. But as far as insurance, I have looked up several states, South Dakota, Ohio, South Carolina, different things. And as far as golf carts are concerned, the state of Ohio has now allowed golf carts to go on certain highways depending on the speed, but they have to take the golf cart to police headquarters, have it registered, and show proof of insurance. South Carolina, where a lot of people go for vacationing, that's the same way. Golf cart, they have golf cart paths down there, and you're only allowed to go within 4 miles of where it's registered as far as the golf cart is concerned. And they say it has to be registered with the police, and you have to have proof of liability insurance, of course, driver's license. But I know in South Dakota, my daughters lived there in 3 different cities, Aberdeen, Yankton, and now the capital, Pierre. And each city, they have been able to drive golf carts without any problem. As far as UTVs is concerned, I know that Ohio classifies UTVs and ATVs as motorcycles, and they are given insurance, and they are given a permit, a license plate to drive it. Now, I have not seen anyone from Ohio in West Virginia right now that have a license plate, and I don't think we could probably do anything about it. But if Mr. Conley gets elected to the House of Delegates, I think that should be something that would come up in West Virginia, because a lot of states are changing their laws concerning UTVs, ATVs, and golf carts. I don't know. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Well, thank you, Bruce. Bruce has brought up a procedural question that I think we should deal with. What I'd like to do is read the ordinance, and then we'll take a vote, and then we'll open it back up for discussion, just so that we can do it officially. So this is an ordinance regulating the use of motorized carts, including golf carts, UTVs, and ATVs upon the streets, roads, and highways of the city of Vienna. I'll entertain a motion on first reading for the approval of an ordinance regulating the use of motorized carts, including golf carts, UTVs, and ATVs upon the streets, roads, and highways of the city of Vienna.
A ordinance or this ordinance?
This ordinance as it is, but obviously it can be amended, and it's only first reading, Roger. Okay?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the ordinance regulating the use of motorized carts. Now, is there any further discussion?
This doesn't discuss or address motorized bicycles, which has been brought up in Parkersburg. I was in Amish country the other day, and I saw a lady, Amish lady, on her tricycle going uphill, and she wasn't pedaling. And I thought that was kind of unusual. I guess they have what is called e-machines, which are battery-powered, also tricycles and bicycles. And the Amish were allowed to buy them and to use them. And this doesn't address those. So I do have a concern as far as some of the seniors at Pleasant Tower. I do know that they use their scooters or carts, if you want to say, and crosses in front of Walmart to go to Walmart to buy groceries and to get their drugs at the pharmacy. That is addressed in Section 3, dealing with the A part of it. And personally, I'd like to go ahead, if it's all right, and discuss that. I'd like to propose,
If you're going to amend it, yes.
I'd like to propose an amendment to that.
Well, let me see if I can answer before we amend it. Let me see if I can address your concern. I don't think that this ordinance, as it's set out, intends to prohibit people from using, and I'll call it a rascal because that's the brand, that's the thing that I think of. But the ADA calls them other power-driven mobility devices. I don't think of those as the same thing as a golf cart. They're designed for a single person to use. They're designed to interact with pedestrian traffic. They're relatively small. They're not as obtrusive as something like a golf cart. So, I mean, I had actually had drafted a version of this that specifically exempted out OPDMDs or other power-driven mobility devices. But I think if it's something that we would allow to be on a sidewalk, and we would allow rascals to be on a sidewalk.
You do know that golf carts are classified as a PED.
Well, it depends on
Federal
how
law.
that depends on your definition. The ADA says that under certain circumstances, if a person is disabled, they can use whatever OPDMD that they want to use.
Yeah.
But you can have limitations on those, and there are other limitations as well. But we're talking about dealing specifically with a street. The reason I say that golf carts wouldn't apply in this circumstance is a person on a rascal wouldn't be allowed to drive their stuff up and down the street the same way that a person isn't supposed to just be walking up and down Grand Central Avenue. You know, if you're supposed to cross at a crosswalk, I treat them the same way you would a person in a wheelchair or using pedestrian, just walking. So I have a draft of something that I've written that specifically excludes out OPDMDs, and it says for purposes of this article, it doesn't include golf carts, UTVs, or ATVs as set out therein. The other part with the ADA compliance is generally limiting it to access in buildings. So if a person has a wheelchair, we have to accommodate them so they can get into and get ingress and egress in a building, or come to this room and what have you. Now, obviously, we're not going to be able to widen the doorway to allow a person to get a golf cart
in.
Right, but and we have addressed that to some degree with our park regulations because we allow folks to use OPDMDs, including golf carts, in Spencer's Landing in the park area. When we passed our park regulations, we allow it for use on that. But this is specifically dealing with riding a vehicle in the street, and I don't think that the rascals would count as something like that because they're not being used to be ridden in the street. They're being used on sidewalks and in crosswalks and what have you. And I don't think you could ride them in the street, the same as I don't think a person could just walk up and down Grand Central without, essentially jaywalking.
I just don't want our seniors to say, well, I can't go get groceries or can't go to get my drugs at the pharmacy or anything and cross in front of Walmart. And it is a motorized cart, and by definition, it's on the front. It says motorized cart. But my biggest concern is in Section 3, the Part A.
That they may cross a street that has a posted speed limit in excess of 25 miles an hour. Your concern is that the motorized cart wouldn't be able to cross the part of Grand Central that has crosswalks.
Well, first of all, with the last two sentences, it says in the crosswalk, except
Right.
that portion of Grand Central located south of 28th Street, it is expressly prohibited for a motorized cart to cross any part of Grand Central south of 28th Street.
So your concern is that the motorized cart definition is too broad and that it
Well,
could be construed to incorporate.
Grand Central
residents.
doesn't start from 2-lane to 7-lane till 23rd.
Right,
So I think that should go to 23rd Street.
okay.
But I also am concerned that I've been here for a long time, and there's always been a problem with people saying that on the north side of Vienna, they have certain privileges that you can't do on those who are from South Vienna. And I don't want to come into that situation. I think that, as was said, that at stoplights below 23rd, such as at 12th, and in front of the Walmart, should be able to allow crossing there. But I think that 28th Street should be started at 23rd, and that below 23rd, golf carts should be allowed to cross Grand Central Avenue at stoplight intersections like 12th and in front of Walmart. I know it's dangerous. I know that people from the high rise constantly say that the stoplight in front of Walmart is too fast, and it makes them very difficult, especially the elderly, to get across the highway there. And I don't know if you've ever been down there and watched an elderly person try to walk across the highway there. I want to say it's comical, but it's not, because, I mean, they end up trying to rush across the highway to get across the highway because the light is so fast there. Yeah. And it's very difficult to get across 7 lanes of highway there. But I think that the Section A there, the 28th Street should be changed to 23rd, and below 23rd South, that golf carts should be allowed to cross at intersections that have stoplights.
When I read this ordinance, that's the first thing that jumped out at me. Exactly what Bruce is talking about is the 28th Street comment there in section 3, paragraph A. You know, and more people are utilizing golf carts, not just to go to the golf course. I know people that have golf carts, they've never played a hole of golf in their life. And there are more and more golf cart communities, and they're popping up everywhere. And I agree with Bruce on the crossing. You know, maybe driving them up and down Grand Central, you know, could be an issue. But I think crossing at those intersections where they are controlled by traffic light should be considered. Yeah, I just have a problem with the you know, can only cross Grand Central above 28th Street, and I am not. I mean, I'm obviously for an ordinance. I think we've got to have an ordinance, and you know, Russ kind of explained why, but I won't support this one with that language in there.
Well, you can amend it. It's your ordinance. I just made a framework.
I've got a couple points too.
Russ, I was just gonna, and I'm sure you've got an easy answer to this, but we're talking about a potential city ordinance pertaining to crossing a state highway, whether it be 12th Street or whether it be 60th Street. Is there an issue with a city ordinance pertaining to crossing a state highway?
No more so than any other ordinance as far as controlling traffic that I'm aware of. There hasn't been an issue in any of the other municipalities that have brought it up. I mean, if it
UTVs and ATVs has always been able to cross highways,
right,
but they can't drive on highways. So
they can for a period of time. They can do it if they're going from trail. That the statute says from trail to trail, They have to limit their speed. They have to stay to the, the furthest right part of the road. But you can't, I mean, we've all been to different counties where people drive ATVs wherever they want, but technically the statute says trail to trail.
Well, golf carts,
But a golf cart's
you
not.
don't have to worry about the speed on them. They're kind of regulated themselves.
Yeah.
But, I mean, UTVs and ATVs are different.
Yeah.
I mean, they can go pretty fast if they
Yeah.
want to.
Well, you can make a golf cart go pretty fast now too, but
Well,
some folks can buy them or they buy them, modify them, and,
yeah.
Does this apply to motorized wheelchairs also?
Does not.
Does not.
Mm.
So a couple things I have. First of all, Russ, on section 2C or B to C, I don't know if there's a typo there but I don't know what it means at a distance of 500 feet. Because B says, at certain times after dark and so forth, you can't operate them. Then C says at a distance of 500 feet. But what at a distance of 500
Well,
feet?
hold on, because mine doesn't say that. What are we looking at?
That's what mine is.
Oh, that was supposed to, that's B and C. Somehow when this got changed over to Word, B and C are actually one whole thing.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
then generally.
Yeah.
When I was looking at this ordinance, and this, I pulled up an article from AARP, Public Policy Institute, dealing with design considerations accommodating low-speed vehicles and golf carts. Number one, there's a distinction. Golf carts up to 20 miles an hour, then a low-speed vehicle is 25. So I think that what are we talking about here? The range from 20 to 25, and then the other thing, and this is a part of what I do for a living too. First of all, I absolutely believe there has to be an insurance requirement. I can't tell you how many tragic situations I've seen in my career where uninsured and underinsured people are just devastated when situations happen that people are not insured that have caused that accident. So I absolutely will not support an ordinance that doesn't require insurance on these vehicles. With respect to the crossing on Grand Central, 12th Street, I can see to the east of Grand Central that you can get into communities with these golf carts where it would service and they would be, could be operated safely, 25-mile-an-hour speed limits. But when you get down to Walmart, you're going from Walmart, but when you get into Walmart Plaza, other than the mall and Walmart, there's nowhere to go. And then the same thing on the other side, you're into Hobby Lobby, Kmart, and I suppose you could get out down by Talbot's that way, but the question is, how do you get there? And I think this goes back to Chief Pfeiffer, is to say, where do you draw a line? I understand what Scott's saying, because you got Ann Drive and you got access there, and you've got at 12th Street where you can get places on both sides and operate those legally. So I think that if we talk about extending it below 23rd Street or 28th Street as it's currently written, that we need some input as to, you got to kind of say where can you go and how can you operate those things, because you can't really get, I guess you could go across 12th Street, get to the other side, then you're cutting through Sam's, but I don't think they have a cut through to like where NTSB or National Tire and Battery is now. I think you got to look at what can you get to it, can you get there from here, and what kind of hazard do you create to do that? And then the other thing is, I think also, Chief Pfeiffer's concern, these things don't stand up well to car crashes, and that was another thing in this article, which I agree with. The Insurance Institute that does all this highway safety, they have a conniption fit about this. They're saying you put golf cart or low-speed vehicle against car, you got a big problem. So I think we got a real concern about protecting not just the people in vehicles, but the people on these low-speed vehicles, and saying, there are places you don't belong. But on the other hand, I get that also, and I recommend this article to everybody, because it also talks about the utility of, well, first of all, even just the consumption, the power, and that they're green, much more so, and there's a lot of advantages to it. So, this is kind of a, there's a double-edged sword, and there's pluses and minuses, pros and cons in a big way to this ordinance. But But I think going south in Vienna, taking into consideration what Bruce says, you know, the geography of Vienna is different when you get below 23rd Street. And so I think all those things are in consideration. So I don't know that, you know, I support an ordinance. I don't know that I'm educated. I mean, I saw this pop up. I've talked to Scott on the telephone about this in the past. I understand his issues. People have invested in these carts, you know, kind of in reliance, but the state also has changed the law since that, and we talked about that. And I think right now it's, like Russ said, you know, it's perhaps a privilege and certainly not a right to operate these in the city of Vienna, and we have to have some guidance and guidelines for our people. But you know, I don't know if I would move to table this for this meeting, and I'd like to give some additional thought to it. Talk to the chief and say, where do you think, you know, these can be operated safely? What about the insurance? Well, I know what my position is on the insurance, you know, and some things like that. So my motion would be to table this at least for one meeting, and we could go ahead and vote it on the first reading, but I think there are definitely some things that need looked at, perhaps some amendments, and really look at where these carts can be safely operated in Vienna, because I think we do want to do that for our people. Our community, in a lot of ways, is suited for it. That's
I agree. I think we need to take a closer look at it and look at some of those geographics that Jim was talking about.
So we have a motion to table this until the next meeting. Does that give you enough time, Jim?
Yes,
All right, so we have a motion to table this.
and I will spend some time.
All right.
So moved.
It's already been moved. I need a second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we table this to the next council meeting to gather more information. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? The motion is tabled until the next council meeting. Scott, I'd like to ask a question, though, just a quick one. You live on Allen Drive.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, that's what you said, right?
Yes, sir.
Ann's Drive is a cul-de-sac. There are no other streets that come out of Allen Drive that can tie you back to 12th Street. How are you going to get from Allen Drive over to 12th Street?
When you come down to the end of Ann's Drive, where the cul-de-sac is, we have put in a paved golf cart path to get between Allen Drive and Ann's Drive.
Okay, all right.
I just would like for council also to consider one of the other things that folks do with this, in addition to going to the store and what have you, is some of the folks that have children pick up their kids at Greenmont. So, and I don't, one way or the other, that doesn't make a difference. But one of the things to consider is, do you want to try to regulate that, and if so, how? You know, my solution was to let you can pick up your kids, but they have to wear helmets. But I hadn't really thought of it beyond that.
Okay, take that into consideration.
Yeah, and something else that I would like to understand, because I don't have one. You know, for example, seatbelts, golf carts typically don't. I'm gonna guess what you drive does.
Mine does not, and I believe I could probably purchase them aftermarket, but almost all golf carts don't come.
Right, okay.
I know a salvage yard that can probably fix you up with 100 different colors. Okay, all right.
There's only one golf cart that I know of that has a frame, so it'd be very difficult anyway to put seatbelts on a golf cart because most of it's fiberglass.
Okay. Moving on to item number 3 on our agenda this evening. It's internal budget revision number 4. Mr. Leach, would you take us through this, please?
Well, this is in the Dropbox, an internal budget revision number 4. These are all internal budget revisions that do not require state approval because these are revisions within the same account category. We're coming up to the deadline by state code, as I understand it from talking with Amy, that these revisions need made, and these are basically just internal budget revisions in multiple departments. We've got mayor, finance, personnel, purchasing, building inspection, data processing, city hall, police, fire, parks, pool, code enforcement, and community center, where there are transfer of funds from budget line items that have surpluses to budget line items that would have a shortfall. And this is basically the city cleaning up the end of the year, making these budget revisions to accommodate meeting our budget. So if there's any specifics, but again, the numbers are here. And that's what internal budget revision number 4 is comprised of.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of internal budget revision number 4.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve internal budget revision number 4. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of internal budget revision number 4, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on our agenda this evening is general fund budget revision number 6.
General fund budget revision number 6 reflects the transfer of unencumbered fund balances, the carryover to the capital reserve account, current budget 442. The increase is $1,206,634, increasing the revised budget to $1,648,757, and then a transfer from other funds of capital reserve. Okay, now that's a zero amount. So I want to make a comment about this. You know, within any action by council, our department heads, our administration has looked at COVID and everything that's going on within our communities right now, and just of their own volition have said, you know, we need to be careful going forward. We don't know what the future's going to bring. We don't know what federal support might be. And I think that this reflects, you know, some of this fiscal conservatism that some members on council, including myself, like to see. So I would just like to, even just call it a shout out to the City of Vienna administration department heads, to this forward-looking. You know, we need to be careful, and I think that's reflected in this unencumbered fund balance transfer, and so that is what general fund budget revision number 6 indicates to me.
I'll entertain a motion for the approval of general fund budget revision number 6.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve general fund budget revision number 6. Is there any further discussion?
Just a quick question in light of what Councilman Leach was just talking about. How does this carryover compare with previous carryovers? I mean, I'm looking at it thinking it's pretty consistent with previous carryovers. Am I incorrect in making that statement?
We'd have to ask Amy that question.
Yeah, and I
Roger.
don't have those numbers in front of me either, Roger, but I think this one is a little bit bigger from my sense of it.
I think so. I think it might be slightly, yeah.
That's all.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, then all in favor of the general fund budget revision number 6, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Last item on our agenda this evening is our coal severance budget revision. Mr. Leach.
1920 coal severance fund budget revision number 1, unencumbered fund balance carryover. Current budget is 2,000. The increase is 21,539. And then also within this revision is a capital outlay over to carry over monies to the street projects of $21,600, which is an increase of current budget is 21,600. I'm sorry, increased by the coal severance transfer 21,539. So a capital outlay for other streets would be 43,139.
I'll entertain a motion for the approval of coal severance fund budget revision number 1.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we approve coal severance fund budget revision number 1. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of coal severance fund budget revision number 1, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. That concludes our agenda for this evening. Council comments. Yes, sir, Roger?
I want to come back to the ordinance on the low-speed vehicles.
I would love to do that, but Mr. Bibby got to you first.
Sorry, Jim.
Okay.
Beat you.
Quick draw, McBibby.
I have just a couple brief things I want to mention, and this kind of goes back to Mayor, your comment to Mr. Flowers about you not knowing about the situation up there. Probably one of the most common calls that I get or get confronted at the grocery store, the mall, is what is happening in the city of Vienna with a lot of the condition of some of the residents there. Vienna's a beautiful city. There's a lot of beautiful homes in Vienna. But let's us face it, there's getting to be some pretty trashy ones. And I've traveled around the city, spent a lot of time just looking, and in my opinion, it's getting bad. A lot of the people that I talk to, when they bring it up to me, they say they have called to the city. They don't always know who they talk to, but they also say they're being told that, well, there's nothing that can be done. I can't confirm or deny that because I don't know that to be true. I don't know it not to be true. But in thinking about some of the information that is being given to me, I took it on myself to make some journeys through our city, and it is. I mean, they're popping up everywhere. Some of these places are looking pretty bad. So, in the near future, I'm going to bring a proposal to council on maybe how we can kind of maybe improve or get some of these places that looks of them improved. You know, that would involve code enforcement, the beautification folks, but some of them really need to be addressed, my goodness, and they need to be addressed pretty soon. So that was my first thing. The second thing, tomorrow evening would have been the fire department's annual ice cream social. So we do want to remind everyone that it has been canceled for this year. They're talking about a bigger, better one next year, but it has been canceled for this year. Just a reminder for everyone, and that event being their only fundraiser that they do during the year, they are continuing to take some donations to the department in the absence of their only fundraiser. So, thank you.
I'd just like to make a comment about your first item, Roger. You know, code enforcement is probably one of the most difficult things that the city deals with. And obviously, if council wants to look at that to stiffen up the ordinance, then that's the direction that we need to go. We're in a situation right now where we've been fighting a house that's gotten into fairly, you know, well, let's just say we've been in a situation with a house that we've had to take and do some work to it, and we've got liens against this house. So the city spent several $1,000s to, you know, bring this thing up to where it's, you know, acceptable. Now they're going to sell this house on the courthouse steps, which means we lose every dollar that we invested in that because there's no way for our lien to be, you know, a primary lien. The bank will get their money, and other than that, every dollar that we spend, we lose. And so you get to a point where it's like, how much money do you want to spend? You know, the city of Parkersburg, and I don't know the exact number, but they tear down an incredible amount of houses. But you end up spending more money to tear the house down than what the vacant lot's worth. And so I'll be glad to talk with the code enforcement people. We can get them in here. You know, it's just how stiff do you want to make the rules, and how much money are you willing to invest of the city's money in order to try to address these issues. You know, I'm a firm believer that if you don't get ahead of these issues, they continue to bring the whole neighborhood down. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I agree with your comments. A lot of it is
just cleanup. I mean,
when we clean it up,
yeah,
we charge $92 an hour, and we put a lien against your property. Okay, but we don't get any of that money back until you sell your house to someone.
Right.
Or we go to court and try to execute on the judgment that we've gotten, which means you have to sue people that didn't have money to clean up the property to begin with.
But anyway, I thank you, and we'll definitely take a look at that, because I agree with you, all right? Okay? Yes, sir, Mr. Leach, I'm sorry you had already spoken.
Oh, no trouble. So, Scott and Chief, I mean, in the time that we tabled this, the things that I'd like to understand, first of all, obviously this can fluctuate, but how many people are we talking about in the city that want to operate these carts? Because I think that has some bearing on, how, I guess, what kind of, well, just risk, okay? And and then this geography, and I would like to maybe get together with you and a couple other people and the chief and sit down and even with this city map and say, so that when we do come back together to discuss this, that we have some type of consensus about what makes sense to balance the interests here, to all the citizens of Vienna. Nobody, I mean, I quite frankly, in the last 6 weeks, I have driven by both fatalities and the incident in front of McDonald's. I drove by all three of them, right as they were transpiring. And I don't like, it's not, I mean, and obviously the impact to me is nothing compared to the people involved in the first response having to deal with that. So, I mean, it's concerning. And so I would like to get, like I said, maybe 2 or 3 people from the group that support being able to use these carts, law enforcement, and anyone else that's interested. Because I think that to put this together really is going to take some thought. And I think there's definitely going to have to be some lines. I don't see how we can get all the way down to Walmart, unless somebody points something out differently than what I'm thinking. And I don't know the streets as well, obviously, as the chief does. But anyway, so that's my thought.
Mr. Rogers.
Jim, I live on River Road in front of Mini Bell Golf Course, and I'll tell you this, there's probably 2 or 3 golf carts driving by my house every day, even though they're not supposed to drive on River Road because it's a double yellow line. But I don't live close to the country club, but I do know there are many people in that area where it is that have golf carts that drive to the country club for lunch or to golf or whatever. So I do know that golf carts are used quite a little bit. 2 things that I have. Number one, I've been asked multiple times if the city of Vienna is going to apply to get some of the money back from what has happened over the COVID-19 shutdown. And the other day, I guess I read in the paper that we have applied, and really I was kind of disappointed because not that we have applied, but because I haven't heard about it before, and I had to read about it in the paper. And the people who had asked me, all I could say was, I don't know what's going on. So, I mean, it doesn't take too long to email 2 paragraphs with the information to let us as council or recorder or whatever to know something about that. Also, going back to the street problem back here, between 12th and 11th, 13th Avenue and 14th Avenue, there is an alley back there. And I have received multiple complaints about the alley and how bad it is. And the other day, while I was out, I took my wife back there. When we got the other side, she kind of stretched and did this with her neck, and she kind of said, boy, this is bad. And I said, yeah, that's the reason why people are calling about it. And the mayor and I have talked several times about the street, and there is basically quicksand back in that area. And that's probably some of the problem that you're facing over there with what your problem is. There is quicksand in that area, and it's very difficult to control. But I will say this, we have an expensive camera truck, can look into it, and I'm sure the mayor is going to try to satisfy your problems some way or another. I guarantee that. And if not, keep coming back. That's one way to keep us knowing what's going on as far as that is concerned. But those are the two things I'd like to say. Thank you.
So I'd like to answer one of the things that you asked about, Bruce. You know, this last rain event that we had was a little over 3 inches of rain in 1 hour. It's the largest amount of rain we've ever had in the month of June. And there is absolutely no storm system ever that will handle that much water. There was a comment made about some pictures that were presented this evening. I've been in that neighborhood many times. We replaced all the culverts at the end of the street with brand new culverts. We went to where they tie in. We changed all the culverts that go down towards Pond Run. You can only get so much water out of these areas because Pond Run won't hold it. The Pond Run was higher than I've ever seen it at this rain event. It literally went from the shelter in the park almost to the community building. That's how wide Pond Run was. The water was this far from going over the bridge at the Taco Bell. Until Pond Run drains down, that is the only outlet that there is for that stormwater. And so you just can't make it go any faster than nature will take it. Mike, I went down into the neighborhood you and I have talked about many times. The good thing about it is the flooding that was there at 6 o'clock, when I went back at 7 o'clock, was gone. The water had drained. The neighbors' yards, they're very wet. The ground will only hold so much water. But that's one of those things right there, Bruce, that I don't care how big the pipes are. If Pond Run won't hold it, it's not going anywhere. So, you know, those are, I mean, we've got certain areas in town, but I've never been up to Mr. Flowers. I mean, I will go. We'll look at it and we'll see what we can do. You know, like I say, I'll be there tomorrow.
May I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
The frustrating part is when you call or email and they never respond. We'll call you back. They don't bother to call you back. They say, we'll be right out. They don't come out. They drive by, but they never stop and discuss it with you.
So call me.
That's the problem.
Call me. Okay? All right? You can email me. All right? You know, that's just one of those things. I'll take care of it. I mean, you know, but anyway, Mr. Connolly.
Mayor, maybe we as council need a more consistent procedure to address some of the issues from the citizens. And I'll use this as an example. I had a couple of calls actually, about one of the streets here in Vienna, and I sent an email out basically to you, Mayor, and all of council, and you told me right before the council meeting that that street had already had some potholes taken care of, and that was really fast response. So, I mean, I think that's great. The Flowerses did call me 2-3 weeks ago, I guess, and I did stop by their house. I seen their problem. Maybe I should have did the same thing and emailed all of council, but I did call 2 different departments. One department referred me to another department. That department said, we will get right on it and go take a look. Obviously that didn't happen because Mayor, you didn't even know about it. But I guess what I'm saying is maybe we all need a more consistent procedure, and maybe it is emailing each other. But maybe if we have that procedure, maybe we can keep some of these things from falling through the crack a little bit.
Okay.
Pun intended.
Falling through the crack. Oh, there you go. Okay. All right. Oh, and I'm sorry, Bruce. You asked another thing. We have applied for the funds from the state. We were they sent it back to us for more information. We have no idea whether we're going to qualify, how much we're going to get, or anything. Okay. It's quite a cumbersome process to get in it because the rules are so strict. But so at this point, I can't tell you if we're going to get money, which I know we will, because they've paid other cities for cleaning supplies and things like that. But I don't know that for 100%, but I'm confident we will. But at any rate, when we get it, you'll be made aware of whatever it is. It's not up for negotiation. They give us whatever they can justify by by checking the boxes. So, you know, Amy Roberts is on top of that.
Yeah.
All of the departments kept extremely good records as far as the hours that we spent, you know, doing all the things that we needed to do, all the additional cleaning we've had to do, all of those things. So we can document it pretty well, but in the process, I mean, it's going to be a while. So,
Yeah, I understand that, but I just like to say I appreciate a heads up. Okay,
I'll try to give it to you when I get it, Bruce.
okay, thank you.
All right.
I got a few things, Mayor. And I recommend you guys, because you guys need to call councilman, you really do, because I commend Mayor Rapp on this part, because I have had some people call me directly, and I call Mr. Rapp himself, and he does get on it the next day, at least the last 4 or 5 things. So definitely call one of your councilmen, and make our numbers on the website. Instead of just calling the city, call one of us. I mean, that's what we're here for. So I do want to give that word of advice to you. And also, I want to congratulate Councilman Conley for his delegate victory onto the general election this November. I hope you pull through with that. And along the lines of what Mr. Leach was saying, like you being fiscally conservative, I would love to see. I know that there's a department head, or there's some department that has an opening right now. I saw the opening on Facebook or the Vienna ad or whatever. But I would love to see. I know our city payroll has gone from 3.2 million, I think 5.2 million this year, and I would love to see. My recommendation would be the hold off on hiring anyone. I know there's an opening in the public works. I think the department is, but I would love to see, as part of us being fiscally conservative, to not hire anyone right now, and maybe hold off on if this position, whether somebody's promoted, I don't know what position it was, or one of the lower tier people can be promoted this position, or I don't know what position it was, but like I say, but hold off on hiring anyone right now until we see what economic impact what we went through these last couple of months. So that's just my recommendation.
Anything else?
May I comment on that somewhat? I agree with what you're saying, but I'm going to say this. If there is a vacancy, it usually goes through the HR department, and they have the authority to go ahead and hire that person. Hiring used to go through this council, but when we hired the HR person, then if there is a vacancy and a job is posted, the HR department has the authority to go ahead and hire the person. So
Except for new
I don't
positions.
know about how to say that we need as a council to say that we want no hiring from now on. I don't know if we have to make a resolution or something like that until the finances get settled, but the HR person has that right to hire and fill that position now, and it used to go through council, but it doesn't do it anymore.
I was just thinking about whatever this position was, could it be picked up by other employees, as far as, I mean, I don't know what this role was, I have no idea, but that was just my asking. I mean, like,
I agree with what you're
it showed
saying.
signs of being fiscally conservative if we held off on whatever position it was.
I would just like to quickly respond to that too, and I absolutely am in full agreement with that. We've looked at, in the past 7 years, right at a 46% increase in our payroll. And, I don't know the justification for that, and that's certainly something we're not going to have time to get into today. But we certainly need to consider, in my opinion, reducing that payroll through attrition. And through attrition is when you have someone leave, reallocating that work maybe not to a person but to people. I have personally had to do that in my company over the past couple of months. It's extremely painful. It's painful to have to lay off a person. It's painful to have someone go to part-time. But we're in a day and age right now where we have got to be looking at that. I understand we need to be optimistic, not pessimistic, but there again, folks, I'm talking about a 46% increase in 7 years. we need to start taking care of that through attrition. And I think now is the perfect opportunity to start that process.
Anything else? I guess my last comment will be to just respond to you all. You know, you want first-class service, and you want the streets as safe as you can have them. And Mr. Flowers, you'd like to have your street repaired, wouldn't you? Okay, so I can tell you right now, we operate with as few people as we can possibly get. And if I come to you and I tell you that it's going to be 2 months before our crew can get to you, it's because we don't have enough people. And the street that, you know, was referred to, that street's got so much quicksand in it that we've put asphalt on it. We've done everything we can do to stabilize that street. The problem is, every time you add something to it, you raise the elevation of the street and it floods everybody's garages. Nobody wants that. We have one option. We're going to tear that street out and we're going to concrete it because that's the only thing that'll hold that quicksand. Okay? Now, we're going to do that in-house. Now, you tell me how you want me to fix all of these things, and you want me to keep the streets as safe and maintain the incredible rating that we have, not only for quality of life in this town and for how safe our town is, and you want to cut people. So,
But we have
with
30
that,
more employees.